Hi guys, a bit of a change of scenery today. I've actually gone back fully remote as well, so yeah, bit of a change. So one of the things that I really get the benefit of is working with loads of different businesses, loads of different structures, loads of different teams, target operating models, SOPs, or whatever it is when it comes to marketing. And one of the things that I commonly see is there's kind of a mental flow chart that I work from. And whenever marketing becomes dysfunctional or causes problems internally, it tends to be that you strayed away from this kind of structure. And when you get it right, it seems to be a similar structure to what I'm about to show you. And you just kind of fell into it, and it's just worked really well. So I just want to run through where I see marketing fall down, but also how each team member kind of feeds into it. So how does sales feed into it? How does MDs, directors, shareholders, execs fall into it? Essentially, just walk you through how I think as an outside looking in market structure, what areas you should be focused on based on what level of involvement you have in the business, and then how to really squeeze it to be as much success out of it as possible, and kind of give people the autonomy to do a really good job. So, caveat: this isn't for everyone, I guess, but every business that I've dealt with would benefit from having a structure like this, and also just some guidance on what I think should really feed into as well. So I'll move you over to show you the screen and we'll work through this chart. Caveat, it does look really technical, but actually it's dead easy to follow once we build it. So we'll build it out together. So we're just going to work through a bit of a flow chart here. I'm just going to call it marketing function V1. And essentially it's going to be a bit of a flow chart. What I'm going to start with is cash in. So the cash you're physically putting into the business for marketing activities. So I'm just going to follow that process. Right round, so zoom in a bit, make it easier. And go straightened up. Perfect. So cash in. Let's make that a bit bigger so we can see it. It doesn't take long. It's not a big chart per se, but I think it's just a really good visual of um, of where I see the downfall happening quite a lot, and also how we can remedy that. So cash in, dead straightforward. Cash out, well, let's do turnover, for example. Okay, so I'll get that on that. Okay, so cash in, cash out, we've established that. And next, I'm basically going to do, I guess, the marketing activities. So let's just do, I don't know, SEO, PPC, email, social, obviously affiliates, all that kind of stuff. But just for whatever the activities could be, every business is different what you rely on. Affiliates and social, just for example. Okay, so we've got cash in and then marketing activities, and then we need some kind of intermediary process going on. So I'm going to use these something different. So let's okay, SEO and PPC and affiliates, and let's move this down to social. Okay, so that leads to cash in, like that. Let's just let's go a little bit bigger and just go for green. Perfect. Okay, so cash in, and basically going to replicate this to now point to cash out. It looks much worse than what it is once you kind of know what I'm getting at. It should become much clearer. So I'm just going to change these to blue just for differentiate. Okay, so we've basically got a bit of a flow chart of the business puts cash into marketing activities. These may be something different. And then what happens is activity takes place and then it comes back into turnover. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is quickly go through where you should be focusing based on what you do. So this particular area here, I'm going to make it a different colour. So let's just say it's red. And just drop something to see what's behind it. Okay, so this area of focus here, I would say around this area, is going to be your FD, MD, CEO, FD. So from the outside looking in, completely fixated on pounds in, pounds out. so it's easier. Okay. Then we have a secondary purpose, a staff member who is the intermediary between cash in and cash out and effectiveness of these marketing channels. So if I change a different colour as well, let's just change that to and then what we want here is could be anyone, depending on the size of business, head of marketing, e-com director, digital market manager, whatever it may be. You're basically full ownership of acquisition, and you're also feeding for pounds in, pounds out. So you've got some control there. Let's bring that back a bit. Okay. So this area here, let's just turn it to yellow. And who sits here? Let's just say it's the execs. Exec, freelancers, agency, whatever it may be. Whoever you've basically adopted to run these section here. Okay. So what we've got here, MD, CEO, FD would control pounds in, pounds out, and essentially they're reporting, they're keeping fixations on here. Cash goes in, got a head of marketing, director or digital market manager, whoever it is, who's then operating that, they're being the liaison between cash in, executing it to get sales back, and then effectively communicating it back to turnover. So the MD should essentially get a direct line of reporting from these. The exec is effectively doing the work. It's being mediated by this section, and these will be a really strong anchor because they're balancing between the board and they also balance between the execs. Okay, and then there's another area which we need to consider, which is painful when it goes wrong. So it's this section here. What is this section, I ask? So it's basically a transient between marketing activity and turnover. So something needs to happen, which not a lot of businesses factor in. And I'm just going to make that a solid colour because it's really important. So who sits under here? You've got sales manager, head of sales. You've got operations manager, CEO, operations director, and so on. So this section here is basically a translation from marketing activities into turnover. I'm just going to make these a bit smaller, just to make it a bit clearer. It's a bit of a mess. I'm just going to pop them on there. Let's just turn them right so you can see against the dark backdrop. Perfect. Yeah, so there's an intermediary there. So head of marketing would essentially work in tandem with these guys. So they might have a revenue target, they might have an invoice figure, but what might happen is cash in activity is then leading to clients that can't be fulfilled, the sale leads are bad, whatever that may be, and so on. So cash in, marketing activity, which is being mediated by these guys, being executed by these guys, feeding back into turnover, like you say, fulfillment, lead generation, sales process, whatever that may be. Okay, so where's the problem? The problem always comes usually from that. So the director will start and send emails to the head of marketing, ecom director, about intangible marketing activities. So don't agree with social media approaches. Banner doesn't look good. Don't like the designs. Are we doing this the right way? And essentially challenging, because what happens when the director or whoever is mediating marketing activity is not an expert in the field, they might understand the business, but pushing unnecessary pressure on these guys, what will happen then is these guys will then start to focus on that and take their eye off the ball off that. So what will happen is they'll start and go through a bit of a process that these aren't effective, or they'll basically look at pounds in, pounds out at the cost of not running these guys. Executives as well. And this is a very crude way of doing it. Obviously, it's not very pretty to look at, but another thing is if you have an SEO person who is getting absolutely smashed to pieces for pounds in, pounds out, or they've got to look at the bigger picture. First thing that they'll do is self-preservation, is SEO is failing because PPC has been on brand, or searches do really well, but affiliate cannibalize in some of the ranges. or all these channels are working really well, but socials letting the side down, or whatever it is. So effectively, if you push the focus for an exec over the pounds in, pounds out, they'll go into justification mode, and obviously the mediator here might hang out to dry as well. So it's a really way of doing it. It's like a bit of a chessboard going on, but effectively, we've got acquisition channels that are focused on here. So the KPIs could be rankings, it could be CPA, it could be affiliates, could be who we work with, media packs, and all that kind of stuff. Social could be likes, engagement, market share, whatever that may be. You've got someone who's tethering that to good operational processes and likelihood to translate to turnover. MD CEO saying, okay, for every pound we get in, we get £7 back, for example. And yeah, another thing as well, and this is all very fluid. So we've seen what happens when the directors move into control of these guys, when the market and then goes back over to more pounds in, pounds out focus, the exec self-preservation. But there's also this one, which is a little bit more tricky. It needs to be really mediated effectively well. Is these guys can start to move in on the acquisition channels. So, for example, leads are bad, orders can't be filled, or whatever that may be. And what typically happens is these will start and cause problems. So when cash in and cash out isn't good, the metrics don't look good, you need to lean on these guys who will then translate that commercial performance into actionable market activity. And then when this activity isn't good, then this can kind of set expectation for the budget for the turnover as well. So most marketing teams that I know, if they run on this function where they don't have directors breathing down their necks because they don't agree with the word of a Facebook update or whatever it is, I'll let you give these free reins of control to run it effectively. When these guys can translate between cash in, cash out, and then market activities being the mediator, you aren't burdened by either side, you're just being the link between. They can flourish. If they need to get in the exec stuff, it's probably at the cost of losing perhaps operations, cost of trying to drive more sales on these channels without looking at these guys. Or if you get dragged into that, they'll look at it from a cold perspective. So cash in, cash out, they'll probably save on software or tone down PPC or go into self-preservation. If anybody encroaches on the execs basically will go into preservation mode. So if SEO is getting heat, or if you've got one exec run them all, things like seasonality will come in, or it's just year on year was good, or we're not doing well because of this, so self-preservation mode. And then when operations or sales get the fingers into marketing, it's very short vision, what the leads like this week as well. And also when these guys go into operations, another thing I've seen as well is there's usually the cost of customer service, cost of looking at if these guys side with operations, it's usually invoice figure, and they'll try and remove any bottlenecks from preventing invoice figure. So it could be orders which are low value, low margin, or whatever it is, which will then impact that. So that's kind of the structure that I see quite a lot, how that sits at the minute when it is built for success. Directors, commercial view. I've seen FDs who will literally jump into recommending PPC recommendations by looking at it on a day-to-day basis, or affiliates, whatever that may be. So yeah, that's the best structure that I see. It always works really well. Everyone's owning the areas. Everyone's in the right place. This green one's the most important because they're a really strong anchor for commercial performance and deliverables. So someone who perhaps reports on the board, who understands these roles, maybe come from these areas, is always really powerful. These are really important. And then it's just getting the most out of these, constantly challenging it as well. And also good feeding with operations and things like that as well. So it's really well oiled team. As soon as people deviate from that, I always see dysfunction. It'll either be someone encroaching on another area and it's just having indirect consequences, or sales and marketing will just be absolutely at war with each other. Marketing the same, operations aren't getting them out the door quick enough, so customer service is hurting, or sales leads are bad, or they aren't converting enough leads that we're bringing through the phones. We're going to make the phone ring, we can't convert. So there's all these nuances there, but it always ties back to that kind of this structure that I work with. And whenever I see a problem, I usually just say, okay, who's encroaching on who? And or perhaps these aren't competent, or this isn't competent, or competency comes into it as well. So I thought it's a really good way to free frame it. obviously this is how I see it. It's obviously not how every business is run, of course, but I thought it'd be good just to get a perspective on what I see on this as well.